Alright guys, it's time we explore the camera settings of the DJI Avata to get you from this to this. In this episode, we're gonna learn the basic shutter speed settings, and with the help of ND filters, you're gonna get the dynamic cinematic look. Welcome to the world of motion blur. What's up fam, Rahim here, and welcome to another TGIF episode. Now it is bright, but it is slightly cloudy, but yet it's perfect to intro you to the use of ND filters. By the way, this is a get-go episode, just some basics to start you off. If not, I'm gonna be here the whole day. If you want to know more, links in the description. Okay, so let's just get into it. ND filters, neutral density. Okay, that's what it stands for. They are basically like sunglasses. It's like if it's too bright, then you can start using different shades of them to darken the image, the exposure of it. But having it looking neutral is not enough. Having it look natural is actually one of the elements of making the whole footage look cinematic. You don't want footage that will be too sharp that the footage looks rigid, or too blurry that everything is so soft. So whether it's holding up, let's get into the goggles and I'll walk you through the settings. Okay, so what you see here is the on-screen display of the DJI Avata. I'm going to pull up the camera menu. Alright, you already see, sorry guys, it's very bright. We're gonna go from left to right now. So what makes an exposure is the ISO, the shutter speed, and also the aperture. Now you can't assess the aperture here because it's fixed at, I think it's f2.8. For ISO, I want it to be 100. 100 is the lowest that you will go, and 100 will retain the highest quality in the image. We take it that it's like the sensitivity of the film. So then I go over to shutter. Shutter, how do you choose shutter actually? I have here selected 1 out of 120, right? That's a fraction of the shutter speed. There's actually something called the 180 shutter speed rule. I don't want to go too much into it because there's actually got a lot of theory about the frame rate and also how you relate that to the shutter speed. But if you want more info, then I'll leave a link in the description. Ideally, I want the frame rate of 30 FPS, but I have no option here. It's only 60 FPS. I don't want to confuse you with how I'm going to cheat this, but let's just make use of the rule of the 180 shutter speed, right? And that means at the frame rate of 60, my shutter speed is going to be 1 out of 1/20th of a second. You notice that the image is very bright. So in the situation like this, then that is where we need to put sunglasses on the drone's camera. Nothing too technical here, alright? Like I say, just keeping it basics. So I'll actually pick up an ND filter. I'll start off with the ND8 and put it in front of the DJI Avata's camera. And I'm gonna take note of the EV value, exposure value, right? So before, it was way overexposed at 2.3, and after I place it over, it's giving me a negative 0.3. So there's no lighter filter than this, so I could just go with this and then make some adjustment in post. Okay, let's say for argument's sake, I want to really darken the image further, right? Let's say ND8 wasn't enough. I'll just go through the next set of filter, which is ND16. And let's say I take this ND16 and place it right in front. What kind of exposure value will I get? I'll get a -7, -1, that kind of range. So that's how I actually do it on the field. I will run through the filters and choose which one is suitable for the shot that I intend to take. Okay, so that was as simple as it gets about how you can choose the right filter for the given exposure, alright? Without needing to think about all the calculations and all that, right? Just through trial and error. But now here's a bit of a bonus, because the settings here in the Avata is, I don't have that option of 30 FPS. Instead it's 60. 60 FPS is 2 times the speed of normal, alright? I don't want to slow-mo the shot. I want to take it as is to demonstrate to you what is deemed as so-called looking natural. So I'm actually gonna break this rule, right? So-called like rules are meant to be broken. I already understand what it means to work with the 180 shutter speed rule, so I'm actually gonna work around it. So I just want 30 FPS, and that means my shutter is gonna be 1 out of a 60th of a second. That was hard to say. I think I got tongue-tied a bit there. Let me just bring the actual setting to 1 out of 60th. And you can see that the image is super bright. So what can I do now? I will actually test the filters again. Can I work around with the ND8 or should I be using ND16? Okay, I'm gonna go with ND16 because I have I can see that the sky is being recovered. If anything, I can still adjust it in post. I haven't overexposed the sky. The thing is, even though it's 60 FPS, when I drop it in my editing timeline, I actually choose a 30 FPS editing timeline. So being exported, I have that 30 FPS running at 1/60th of a second. So it's following the 180-degree shutter speed rule. It's correct. So that was just an added bonus that I wanted to share with you. But of course, do trial and error to suit your preference, because the level of output is up to you, whether the outcome is what you desire in your footage. Okay, so I'm gonna get flying soon, but I just want to summarize to you what has just been shared, right? And just expand on it a bit more. Rules are meant to be broken, but so you should take that as a guideline, right? Do look more into what is this 180-degree shutter rule, because from there on, when you get the basics of it right, then that's where you can start to bend it or break it, right? Just as a simple guideline, the numbers that you should be going for is, if you're gonna start off at most basic 30 FPS, you're not intending to slow-mo it, then your shutter is gonna be 1/60th of a second, right? And there's a doubling effect. 2 times, 4 times slow-mo, right? 60 FPS, shutter is gonna be 1/120th. 120 FPS, shutter is gonna be 1/240th, right? And then since I also gave you that bonus, I'm gonna make sense to you right now again, is that since there is no 30 FPS, only 60, I chose 60, but I break that rule that my shutter is 1/60th, so that when I edit this in post, I will only choose a 30 FPS timeline. That matches actually the 30 FPS to the 1/60th of a second, and that is following the 180-degree shutter rule. So guys, with those numbers, aim for a neutral exposure, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less. Like for me just now, I'd rather take a bit less. Why? Because recovering a dark ground is not as bad as recovering an overexposed sky, right? The sky, once it's overexposed, is white, you cannot pull it back. The ground slightly too dark, perfectly fine. So that's kind of the balance, depends on what is the image that you're dealing with. So anyways, not to complicate things further, that has been just a basic sharing about how I use my shutter speed and ND filters together. And if you want to learn more, check out the links in the description. It's a TGIF, guys. Go out there, go meet up with your friends, family and loved ones. And with that, I'll see you in the skies. Peace. I actually want to tap the camera, but the camera is actually 1.5 meters away from me. Okay, bye.